Welcome back to this edition of Critical Mass Radio Show. I am your host, Rick Franzi. Our audience demographic is 98% business owners and executives who listen to learn from our guests. If your firm is interested in reaching these top decision makers, then advertising on the radio show may be the answer. Each month, our sponsors gain valuable exposure through their support of the program. Last month, we delivered over 37,000 highly targeted sponsor impressions. If you'd like to learn more about advertising, contact Rose Chamora, 951-515-4661. All right, our second guest is here in the studio. He's partner at Anton and Chai. He's Nicolas Pulecio. Pulecio. All right, I had it until I had to say it, and he's Italian and he's Sicilian, just like me. I should give him. Anyway, tell me a little bit about your professional background and training, Nicolas. It's nice to have you in the studio.
Thank you. So, I've been doing this for about 14 years, all here in Orange County.
Keep talking. I don't know if I can hear you on the program, and so we're going to have to wait a second because our engineer stepped out of the room. Maybe we can get him back in because it seems that Nicolas his microphone is not working. At least I didn't hear him. If you could hear him, you're a better person than I. So we're going to be getting back with him just in a second. So don't go anywhere, ladies and gentlemen. Just let me tell you that this is Critical Mass Radio Show. I am your host, Rick Franzi, and we have an in-studio guest, and Nicolas is going to be talking about his firm. I can probably hand him my microphone until Paul comes back. So, Nicolas, just use my mic.
Sure.
That's as far as it comes back.
Well, okay, I'll get a little closer here. So, my professional background, I've been doing this for about 14 years here in Orange County. Started off at a local firm here in Irvine, Corbin & Wirtz, which then became Corbin & Company. Spent a few years there, then moved over to McGladrey, and then bounced around a couple small firms and eventually bought one of them out. And in August of last year, merged in with an old buddy of mine that I'd worked with in the past, Anton and Chia.
So you're a business owner now. You're a partner at the firm, huh? That's you're a relatively young man. You look like. You can't see because this is you can see if you watch the YouTube video, which will be up here over the weekend. But if you're listening to us live or as a podcast, you can't see Nicolas's face, and maybe you saw his picture. But that's pretty impressive that you decided to get into being a business owner as early as you did in your career. Why did you do that?
I've owned several businesses over the years. I've always been the youngest one at pretty much anything I've done, so it just seemed like a natural progression for me once I got to the point where I felt like I could do it on my own.
So let's talk about your firm, Anton and Chia. What's unique about the firm? Why do clients choose to do business with your CPA firm? Can you give us a sense for your differentiation?
Sure. So we're a boutique firm, and what's unique about us is we're an international boutique firm. So we do about 20% of our business in China. We do quite a bit of business in Europe, Eastern Europe, a little bit in Africa, Mexico, South America, and Canada. We have our personal offices are here in Newport Beach, San Diego. We will have one soon in Westlake. We have an office in Vancouver, and then we have our affiliate offices in Hong Kong and Mexico City.
This is one of those live radio shows, ladies and gentlemen, where whatever can go wrong might go wrong. And so Nicolas is being a great guest by pinch hitting for us and sort of making do. Think about your guiding principle. Nicolas, we talk about that here on Critical Mass Radio Show, is kind of your overarching belief system about what you do to help your clients. So can you think about what your guiding principle is and spend a minute and share that with our audience?
Right. So one of the main things that we do, there we go. Okay. One of the main things that we do, the big portion of our work is working with small and middle market companies, otherwise known as nano cap, micro cap, and small cap companies.
Whoa!
It used to just be small cap, and then they came out with all these other smaller definitions.
Yes.
But what we do is we help private companies who want to go public go public, and we help small public companies stay public.
Okay.
And we guide them through the process, and mainly it's really boring stuff: financial statement audits, reviews, stuff like that, advisory services.
But it's a heavy responsibility to be a small capitalized company and to be public.
It is, and what happens is a lot of these private companies want to go to the next level and decide to go public for one reason or another. And 8-9 times out of 10, they really don't know what they're getting themselves into.
Right.
And so it's very important that they surround themselves with the right service professionals to help them through the process.
Yeah, I would think. And because they share the same reporting burden as much larger multinational corporations, right?
Very similar, yes. With small deviations, but yes, pretty much.
Yeah, they're carrying that same burden, Sarbanes-Oxley, whatever it might be. I mean, they have the same risk, right, in reporting that the larger corporations have. So having someone like you who's skilled in helping them do what has to be done, but maybe do it in a way that allows them to be a successful business?
Yes, and so, one of our goals is to, and we put it different ways, but to get in, get out as painlessly as possible. So because at the end of the day, we're a compliance function, right? No, nobody wants an audit. They have to have an audit, and someone's mandating it for one reason or another. And we know that. And so when we go in, we do our best to make it as efficient a process as possible, make it as painless a process as possible, and also add value to our service by advising them and giving them best practices based on our experience with other companies.
So you also help companies that are in the planning stages to go public.
Correct.
So CEOs of middle market companies, and I define middle market companies as companies with revenue of $100 million or less. So technically it's the lower middle market if we want to start slicing, right? But we just say middle market here. So $100 million. Why would they go from a privately held firm to a public company? What would be your advice? And when you're working with clients that are considering that, kind of how do you help them decide if they even should go public? And if so, what's the value of that?
Well, and that's a great question because it really depends on the circumstances. There's some individuals that will come to me and say, I want to be Facebook, I want to go public, I want to do this. And I'll ask them, why? And what's your goal? Where do you what really do you want to achieve by doing that? And sometimes I'll talk them out of it because it's not the right fit. It's because it is a big burden. You have all the same reporting requirements. Other companies, it is the right fit. Where is it the right fit?
Right.
Is really when a company is at a point where they can no longer grow on their own horsepower, so to speak.
Okay.
They need that additional push, that additional backing and financing from other sources in order to get them over that hump.
So it's really the infusion of capital from going public that is a driver for growth for some companies, right?
Typically, that's what we see, and in other cases, it's an exit strategy.
Okay, that's the other time. Yeah, I built this value, and I would like to get it out in some way, and this is a liquidity event then for them.
Yes.
Okay, but you can fall in love with the liquidity event and maybe forget about the reporting requirements that are gonna follow you, right?
Right, and other times they get talked into it, and once they're in there, they are very surprised by the amount of responsibility, additional responsibility by being a public company.
Because many times a private company going public, it's not just the founder or the CEO, the owner who gets the liquidity event. Many times it's the key employees, the long-term employees. So you get this whole energy about, we're going to go public, and I've got 100,000 shares, and it's at 50 cents, and you know what I'm saying? So if you back away from that as a CEO and business owner because maybe you realize it's not in the company's best interest, that's a hard dynamic to undo. So my advice to CEOs that are considering going public as an option is to consult with a CPA firm like Nicolas's as early in your deliberative process as possible so you don't misset expectations of your employee population.
Correct. And so recently I was involved in one company in the Valley who recently went public. And just like you said, in the build-up to it, I was speaking to them, and they were excited. They were just beyond themselves. And then it happened. and reality starts setting in, and I pull one of the owners aside and say, "How are you feeling?" "Oh, I'm scared." And he used a couple 4-letter words that I probably shouldn't say, but
Okay.
But
Real scared? I'm real scared? That's a 4-letter word. Was that
well, I was scared S.
Very scared?
S-less. So,
Yeah.
well, we'll say that.
Okay. Right.
But yeah, because reality started setting in of what the requirements were. But we were there. They brought in a good, competent counsel to help them through the process, and started hiring people who knew what they were doing to help guide them through all the requirements.
And in no way am I trying to suggest to middle market CEOs that you should not go public, that it's not worth it, because I actually think it is a very powerful strategy for the right reasons. And sometimes it's the only way to unlock the real value of the company.
Correct.
I'm a fan of that, and I think Nicholas's firm would be a great firm for you to talk to, Anton and Chia, and we're going to be giving their website here a little bit later in the radio program. But I think it's time to take our final commercial break here on Critical Mass Radio Show. We've got much more to talk about, like the kind of things that companies should be planning and focusing on as they're taking their company public. What are the 4 different types of clients, public, private, and public offerings, and hedge funds? So we've got a lot to cover with Nicholas, so don't go anywhere, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be right back after these words from our sponsor.
There's something positive about the word up. When things are looking good, they're looking up. When someone's down, you cheer them up. So how do you move up? Well, when it comes to getting your bachelor's or master's degree, there's one university that stacks up. Brandman University. Brandman is ranked by U.S. News & World Report as one of the nation's top 10 universities for online bachelor's programs. Brandman's online graduate programs in business and education also receive top honors. So look us up at brandman.edu. Brandman University. Move up.
Smart Business Network is a business-to-business multimedia company providing insight, advice, and strategy for C-level executives of fast-growth, middle market, and large companies. As one of the nation's largest publishers of local management journals, under the Smart Business name, Smart Business Network publishes 19 regional print editions, presents dozens of large and small-scale business conferences and award programs, and produces a vibrant interactive digital media presence. For more information, visit us at www.sbnonline.com.
Richard Franzi is a highly sought-after keynote speaker on topics of interest to CEOs of middle firms across North America. Richard's talks include Killing Cats Leads to Rats, a fascinating look at how unintended consequences of CEOs' decisions impact their firm's performance. Your Gray Matter Matters, which explores how a CEO's mindset can differentiate a middle market firm and define its culture. Richard delivers talks to a variety of audiences, ranging from executive team retreats to keynotes in front of hundreds of CEOs. To learn more about his talks, visit criticalmassforbusiness.com and select the contact page or call 949-887-4104.
Hi, this is Rick Franzi. Welcome back to Critical Mass Radio Show. Quite an interesting session we're having here in the live studio. I want to appreciate and thank Nicolas Pulecio for being a good fan about our little technical difficulty that happened earlier. And some things we can fix in post, but that one probably will live on the podcast as well. I'd like to thank and acknowledge our listeners who download our radio show as a podcast. You've downloaded over 12,000 shows during the last 30 days, and we here at the program appreciate your continued and growing support. As I said before, all shows can be heard live here on internet radio station octalkradio.
It depends. So if we come on board as the auditors, obviously our role is limited to audit and some advisory and limited consulting type stuff. On occasion, we will be brought in as just a consultant, and so we will help the company actually through the process.
Okay.
Put them in touch with all the right people, get them in contact with the investors, the attorneys, and put the team together for them to help and get all their package and materials together for somebody else to audit. And typically, that's a lower risk engagement for us, and so the fees are typically a little bit lower, but sometimes it's a little more fun.
Do you find how do you find the activity in this area of private companies planning to go public with a public offering? Are you? My assumption is, it may be ignorant, but during the recession that might have slowed down just because inherent values, etc. It wasn't the time to be trying to float.
Yeah, it dried up.
Okay.
It really did. It dried up because everybody was scared. Everybody. They held on really tight to their money and were very cautious where they put it. Downside to it, there wasn't very many places to put it, and other than the stock market. And we've seen what history, what happened, right? So not until really the last few years when the economy stabilized, we started having slow growth, did the investors start coming back out and putting money into companies,
right?
And into a lot of companies, and so then the IPO and reverse merger type transactions picked up quite a bit.
Okay, so we have about 3 minutes left here with Nicolas, and I guess since my demographic are CEOs of lower middle market companies, and my sense is that many, if not most of them, are privately held companies. Mm-hmm. They're not public companies. What advice would you give to that CEO that's listening now or listening as a podcast in the future about maybe he's never or she's never even really thought about going public as an option, but what advice would you give them at the very early stages of thinking about moving in that direction? What advice could you help them out with?
Well, the first step is getting in touch with the right professionals, getting your own counsel, and getting either an accountant or a CPA who has public company experience, SEC experience, to advise and counsel in it. The same thing that I referred to earlier, the conversation I had with the company that wanted to be Facebook. Right? I sat them down, I drew the plan on the back of a napkin over lunch, and I said, why do you want to go public? And we had that conversation. That conversation needs to take place and figure out if it's the right option for them. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it just isn't. And there's and it also depends on the amount of funds that they want to raise.
Mm-hmm. Do you ever find public companies coming to you to say, okay, well, we want to go the other way. We want to take this thing back private?
I've seen it on occasion, not recently,
Okay.
but I'm sure we may start seeing that in a few years' time.
Yeah, because going public, there's so many decisions that have to be made, and I don't know how an entrepreneur could successfully do it without help. If you've never done it before, this isn't something you're gonna. I mean, you need the advice of people who've been there and done that.
Oh, you're right. Correct. And there's so many rules and regulations around it, not just from an accounting perspective, but all the different reporting requirements to the SEC and the due dates. I mean, some you have 4 days to report, some are 10 days, some are 45, 90. And it's just and for a business owner out there who's never done this before, I mean, they can't be expected to know all this.
Right. And you add a whole new level of stakeholders to your business. You have clients, you have family members when you're a private company. Maybe you have some type of investors behind the business, and you certainly have your employees. But when you go public and your stock is purchased on an open market, right? Then you have a new class of people that are invested in your company, which you may not have a personal relationship with anymore. Which I think is somewhat different from a private company, where you kind of know the money people behind the private company, right? Whether it's private equity or whatever.
Correct, and so there's two things. There's obviously the governance and the reporting responsibilities. Then there is also the level of control or lack of control and the other opinions. And so this morning I was at an annual meeting where the shareholders were voting whether or not to keep the current board on.
And that's their right.
And that's their right. And a public company with good governance has an annual meeting and gives the shareholders that option. But you don't know what'll come out of that. Right.
And so let's just kind of close with where you see the future of private companies moving to public. Are there any trends there? I kind of think technology companies are the ones that are probably the most prime for doing this. Is that true? Is that opinion valid, or are other industries equally as excited about moving from private to public?
Well, and that's a good question, because I have seen trends. So for a while there, it was biotech. It was every little biotech firm out there was going public. Anybody with a great idea was going public, and then it switched to and then it was e-commerce, and then it wasn't. Lately, I've been seeing energy and mining.
Oh, wow. Right.
is what a lot
Those
of
are
the
capital-intense industries, too, so going public can really help you take the business to the next level, right?
Correct.
So I could see why they would want to do that.
Yeah.
Plus, we have such a renaissance in energy in this country. It's right. I mean, we're becoming more and more of an energy-independent nation, which is almost unthinkable for those of us that remember all the way back to the 70s when we were waiting in line for oil and for gasoline. So, okay,
Right.
so energy.
Energy seems to be a big one, and real estate, interestingly enough.
Really?
Real estate seems to be coming back. There's been a couple interesting variations of it that I hadn't expected. One of them dealing with retirement homes. So
Well, that's a macro demographic trend too, right? Retirement homes as the baby boomers age.
correct.
Demand and supply and demand. Good investments.
Yeah, and high capital investment requirements.
Another place where you have a high capital requirement. Manufacturing? Do you see?
Not recently as much.
Okay.
I mean, there has been, and it depends on the circumstances of where they're trying to go. So manufacturing firms, they may hit a limit of what their capital and what their borrowing ability will allow them to do.
Okay, Nicholas, if someone would like to learn more about you and Anton and Chia, how do they find you online?
Online, it is www.ancseCservices.com.
Give me that one more time, please.
www.ancseCservices.com.
Okay, I got it the second time. I see the hidden meaning behind the name. Okay, great. Any other way?
Directly, 949-544-5855.
Tell us that one more time.
949-544-5855.
Okay, Nicolas Pulecio, I appreciate you giving us the time. I apologize for the earlier technical difficulties. I think we survived it here on live radio, and we'll see what Crystal, our producer, can do to fix it. So if you're listening to a podcast and you go, it didn't sound that bad, that's because Crystal worked her magic as she usually does. Thanks for being a friend of the program, and welcome to the community, Nicolas.
Great. Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have to head out here. I'd like to thank Paul, our engineer, for today's show. Certainly want to thank Crystal Nunley, who's our producer, Asia Celestino, who is our marketing strategist, Melissa Padani, who's our social media manager and live events coordinator, Rose Chamora, our VP of sales, and I'm your host, Rick Franzi. I'd also like to thank our advertisers, Brandman University, Commercial Bank of California, Decision Toolbox, Smart Business Magazine, Succession Strategies, and Center Club of Costa Mesa. Until the next show, I hope all of your decisions will move your company in a positive direction.